Hi everyone, Alex, CEO and founder here. Welcome to another episode of Life of Mars, and what a week it's been. For those of you listening and watching us from the future, you will know that last week Facebook went down for several hours. It was not the typical outage. They basically plugged themselves off the internet, right? So there was something messing with their BGP protocol and whatnot, and they had this major problem, which basically their employees couldn't even enter their facilities because the sensors were controlled by IoT mechanisms and sensors that were connected to the Facebook DNSs, and of course they couldn't even authenticate into the system, right? So the whole not the whole internet, but part of the internet went down because Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram, three major tech companies, went down because of this process, which is still unclear in part why that happened, but that's why we brought two experts in site reliability. And from the technical perspective, of course, we've got Victor Castell, who is right now one of the engineers at Job&Talent, one of the most, let's say, well-known startups from the Spanish ecosystem, built in Ruby on Rails, if you allow me that. And also our good friend Jordi Miró, who has been in the podcast for several times already because of his expertise in many things. Basically, who was the CTO of Wacky TV, who eventually went on to become Rakuten TV after the Rakuten Group acquired that company in 2012, if I'm not mistaken, and then went on to have several other roles. But we wanted to have also the perspective of a corporate, because he had been working in Wacky and other corporates in his career, right? So we can confront basically the startup vision versus the corporate vision in this episode. It's a sort of a three-way conversation. We basically just discuss what happened at Facebook and how can startups and how can companies prevent this? Is there a manual style guide on how to act in these situations? When should you write one? How do you act? How do you communicate to clients? When do you communicate to the partners? What's the first things you check? What kind of committee you need to assemble to face these kind of situations? And how to report, and how to avoid crunching so many hours into crazy hours in the morning, because eventually that will create burnout in the team, and how to manage this kind of situations. It's always tricky. Of course, we still don't have, at the point of recording this podcast, we didn't have all the information on what happened essentially. But we thought that, since we are recording more, let's say, more current happenings in this second episode, or the second season of Life on Mars, we wanted to have these kind of conversations going. And I called Jordi yesterday. It's like, hey, can we record this? I've got an idea. Let's do it. And he's he's super kind. Even though he's the CTO of a scale up right now, he's always got some time for us. It's one of the best persons out there. I would say to give a little bit of context, Jordi, we met when he was working at Wacky. He was the CTO of this video on demand company, sort of like a super local Barcelona-based Netflix. And he hired us right away. We were like only 6 months old as a company. And he was like, how do you work? I explained a little bit, and he's like, what's your rate? This. Okay, you're hired. I said, what? I'm not used to that. You go into a client, you have the conversations, typical sales cycle, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, whatever number of sales meetings, and meeting with the CTO, meeting with the CEO, and whatever, and then you send a proposal, and then contract, and then there's all these other departments getting involved, and eventually you might get hired, right? And he was like, no, you're hired. I do things differently. If you guys fuck up, then you're out, and that's it. But I need you right now. And we totally loved that. We ended up working for Wacky for about like 4 years, then interrupted, kind of like on and off a little bit more here and there, until we kind of like lost they re-centralized their development in Germany, if I remember correctly, and we haven't worked together ever since. But then he can transition to other companies. Right now he's the CTO at this travel-based company called the HotelsNetwork. But anyways, this conversation, I think, because it was really improvised, but it's very valuable for startups, because every company goes down, and no matter how hard you push your team, no matter how many site reliability engineers you hire, no matter how good your dev providers, if you work with the agencies or engineers are, your site is going to go down because GitHub will go down, Amazon will go down, you will fuck up with your DNSs, you will fuck up with whatever line of code that shouldn't have been pushed to production. There will be some human mistake happening and going into production. So that will happen. You need to know how to act when it happens and reduce the risk and reduce the cost of everything that's happening while you're down, right? Of course, you don't know how to prevent this, but you can always document it for later so that you don't repeat the same mistakes. That being said, this episode is a little bit techy. So if you're working in DevOps, you're a system administrator, you're an SRE or somebody related to working in this area of the industry, you will like it a lot. But I think there are many takeaways also from the business and management perspective. What else? A couple things. I'm a little bit in shock because I just come from a meeting with one of our friend companies in the industry. This is not publicly available, so I will not be able to disclose it, but they sold the company to another company we really like, both working in the Rails industry. It will be disclosed, I hope, in the next days. I'd like to talk about that. We'll have to invite both of them in the podcast because I think both of them have been in the podcast. One of them has been in the podcast for sure many times. The other one, not yet. They were supposed to be in the podcast last season, but I think we couldn't coordinate properly. We did something together on Clubhouse, if I remember correctly, and maybe one thing or two here and there. But of course, we have coincided in the Rails, in the Ruby community in Barcelona. That's all I can say. I hope I could tell you more about it, but you will find out in the next episode. But I'm super excited because I love both companies. We're really great friends with both of them. We have worked with both of them. And that's great news for everybody. Great news for the ecosystem. Great news for Ruby because, the technology is still going strong. Another good news before we go into the episode itself is that we have officially announced that we're getting back together after 2 years of not meeting. After 2 years of not seeing the team, we're officially doing our Mars Day, our get together offline for the first time in January 2022, right? That's going to give a lot of motivation boost to the team. It's exciting. We want to see them back. We want to see them in person, of course, following the strictest safety measures and whatnot. We hope that in January we'll be in a better position. Without further ado, let's jump right into this episode. Victor, Jordi, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Fine, thanks for having me today. Thank you, Alex.
Quite good, having a better time than some of our colleagues a couple of days ago.
In fact, we're going to be talking about that. As I mentioned in previous episodes of this season of Life on Mars, we'll be talking more about some things that are happening right now, right? And yesterday, there was this major systems down in Facebook, and we wanted to cover that. So I quickly reached out to Jordi, who's an expert in this. As I mentioned in the intro, he used to work at Rakuten as the CTO of Wacky TV or Rakuten TV back in the day. Also Victor, who's also an engineer in the field. So, and thank you for being here so quickly because it was basically a matter of half an hour agreeing to do this and just barely no preparation. So who wants to explain basically what happened yesterday to Facebook, Instagram, and the like in 2 minutes? What happened there for people who have been hiding under a rock in the last 2 days and haven't noticed about this? Maybe Jordi, you want to explain that?
I would say that first of all, at least for sure for myself, we are quite far away from being at site reliability engineering or for sure at the volumes that Facebook or these large companies are. So first, as a disclaimer, so we are here watching what happened, trying to read as much as possible to understand what happened, and quite far away in most cases of our day-to-day, but basically when Google, Facebook, or all these companies, big companies go down, everyone notices, Your mom, your dad, your wife, your husband tells you, Facebook is down, Google is down. What's about with my life? I cannot access Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. So if you consider those three services alone, I don't know, but that's reading on the internet, that's 2 digits of the bandwidth consumed on a daily basis, no, percentually. So it's huge. It's and you
yeah, actually, sorry, Jordi. Actually, my wife asked me, is internet down?
So I thought it was down. I thought it was internet.
Yeah. Well, Facebook is not working, WhatsApp is not working, Instagram is not working, and internet should be down. They cannot be down.
Because it's a large percentage of the traffic being consumed on the internet, no? So, and we all were wondering what's going on from a technical side. Why there are no news, no? Why is it taking so long? Because for any of us with operating an online service, when anything goes down, you start running like crazy, and depending on how serious it is, it takes you minutes to tens of minutes to bring it back, or maybe more, but you expect that Facebook, Google, those large companies, they have, because we know they spend a lot of money in quality assurance, quality testing for any single process that they have. There's a lot of automation, there are different teams, there are a lot of measurements, there are recovery plans, and in fact, they have recovery plans and they test it. Not like in a lot of places that there are recovery plans, but you don't know if they have been tested or not. No? So all of a sudden, you expect, well, something went down, they click a button, they execute a plan, and in minutes they're up. And it took hours. And those hours meant a lot of money for the company and shareholders. No, everyone is talking about the billions that Facebook lost in capitalization and so. But basically, it's like if they disconnected themselves from the internet.
Which is something that happened, right? I mean, I was reading that I think they lost something like 50 billion. Don't quote me on that, like 50 billion.
50 billion.
Which is bigger than Twitter's valuation, right? So that's actually huge. And they were losing like, I think it was like 1 to 6 billion an hour, which is something incredible, right? That happened because there was some kind of a mess up in the BGP protocol. I don't know, maybe Victor, you wanna tell our audience what's the difference between DNS and BGP, because it's maybe some people are not familiar with these protocols.
Yeah, well, the DNS is the protocol that allows us to contact servers on the internet. No, at the end, we just write URLs in our web browsers. We write twitter.com, facebook.com, and then there's the DNS in the middle that it's translating all those friendly names to IP addresses, no? The addresses of those servers or those bigger systems that serve as the applications at the end. And around that, or aside of that, there's the BGP protocol. It's a protocol that is used in the big internet routers, the backbone of the internet. Every ISP or service provider or the biggest networks in the world, like Facebook or AWS, etc., has those big routers that talks between them. We can say they talk between them using the BGP protocol.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of like what Jordi mentioned, like not everybody works at the BGP level, right? Only Facebook, Google, and a few more. So which kind of shows the big dependency we've got on these tech giants, because when Google's DNSs are down, half of the internet is down, right? So, we've seen that early on. So kind of like for an analogy for non so technically savvy people is like, DNS would be like having the coordinates. If you're flying a plane and you're going to go to an airport, DNS is sort of like the coordinates of the destination airport. And BGP would be the kind of communication that happens between the routing towers, right? And you can like tell the towers and calculates the fastest route that you need to take in order to reach that destination airport. So I don't know. One of the things I wanted to discuss here is because it seems that there was some kind of automation problem here, right? Somebody was messing with the BGP tables, and some kind of automated bot merged some code changes that shouldn't have been merged, right? In your experience, like, all of these automation, it seems that automation solves a lot of problems, especially in the companies, makes processes more efficient, less human error prone and all of that. But when you fuck up big time. What kind of problems have you seen with automation in your companies?
Well, I think that, and I'm pretty sure that there were a lot of automation tests to test that those changes were correct. So I have no doubt, and that those changes have been tested before in other environments and been reviewed and everything. Unfortunately, those automated things do whatever we have told them to do.
Correct.
So it is true, it's automated, but someone wrote that automation. Mm-hmm. So at the end, it's a human mistake. It's automated, but someone wrote that automation and told the machine, if this, and this happens, then do this. So that sequence of decisions, it is true that a machine is taking with the orders and the variables that we have given them. So it could have been an automated script, an automated bot, an automated whatever, or could have been a human saying, okay, this has passed all the quality, this has been reviewed by 10 people, this has been tested in 3 environments, apply. I think that there's not much difference between both of them. Automations are here to help us be more productive, and we use a lot of automations from personal tasks that we run with our automated scripts and small things to large decisions in the company. No? The issue is that at the end, as human beings, we do mistakes.
Yeah,
there's a combination of that. Oh, sorry, Victor, you want to go?
Sorry. No, I just wanted to add to what Jordi said, that the automation, in fact, it's a good thing. So it was not a problem with the automation itself, but of how the automation was constructed, not what's instructed to do. In fact, it's preferable to have automation in those processes, because we as humans commit more errors than the automation, the automated things.
Exactly, but we just don't want to take responsibility for that. Like, it's like, oh, the fucking robot messed up, right? It's a combination, actually. For what I read it in a tweet. I haven't found it in an article, but it looks like there was this sort of automated processes that require human validation for 2 days. And if the human who was validating this didn't approve nor deny, it automatically merged. So somebody forgot to check. And so it's actually a human mistake, right?
Even if it was not that, we have a lot of those processes in our companies with code.
Yeah,
we have pull requests that if in 48 hours no one has approved them nor denied them, they automatically are merged.
They go to production.
In our case, it doesn't go to production, but it's merged into the master branch. So next commit or next deployment of that master branch, it goes to production. It doesn't go automatically, but
gotcha.
In the next deployment, if you're not aware, you might be deploying something that you're not aware. But there was a process that said, if in 48 hours no one said it was not valid, it goes there. Yeah. So, and at the end, we do this to be more efficient, to win time for ourselves and the company. Mm-hmm. What can you do? Then you can do what we have all done in the past. It's not 48 hours and it's 72, and it is not 2 reviewers, it is 3. So yes, we can make it as complex as we want, but the more complex it is, the slower we go, and we try to go as faster as possible, minimizing the impact. But when something like this happens, then we are all trying to figure out how to do it better. It happens. I was speaking with my brother who works in Google, and he was saying, hey guys, when this happens to one of your colleagues or companies you look, then all of a sudden everyone in the company is checking all our processes because you don't want it to happen. So those things normally helps us review the processes, the protocols we run, and try to see how much we can improve them or we want to improve them.
Exactly. One of the things, like, for instance, in this kind of, there are also like not only technical processes that require this kind of time-framed human validation, right? For instance, in the company in MarsBased, like, I do the sales, but I usually don't do the quotes, right? For the estimates for the clients. I send the information to my partners, And they know they have 15 days. In 15 or 10 days, something like that. If they don't respond and they don't come up with a document by that time, I will send my version, which can be 10 times worse, but they've had the time, right? But going back to the topic, so basically what happened here, like the main, the headline, is that basically Facebook erased themselves from the internet, right? By erasing these BGP records, DNS records, whatever. They were not reachable, which means that they were not reachable from outside of the network. So, visitors trying to reach facebook.com. But one of the funniest things I read, and this is true, confirmed also by Facebook, is that people couldn't enter their facilities, their offices, because the IoT sensors they're also connected to these routing tables using the DNSs of Facebook. So they couldn't, they couldn't pass through the detectors, and that wouldn't work. So they couldn't physically access the offices. I don't know if that's something too big of a scale, but I don't know if you've ever experienced that. What's the protocol of emergency in this kind of, system down emergencies in your companies? Maybe which one do you want to describe? Victor, you want to go first, maybe? What do you do in these cases?
Depending on the case, we evaluate the impact on the users. Of course, we have not suffered. Luckily for us, suffered anything like that, being disconnected from the lock from the door, disconnected from the internet. We cannot enter the office. That didn't happen to us. But in a case of an outage or an incident, we first evaluate how is it impacting our users or our internal users maybe, or the systems in general, and then there's a protocol, a process, an incident response protocol. We have a private communication channel that raises all alerts. It's a special channel, in Slack, where you enter there, and if there's someone talking there, something heavy is happening, you know that, and then we start. First, we need to evaluate what's the impact, going through the details of the incident and gathering all the possible information of what happened, and then stop the bleeding. We need to take some actions to stop the bleeding as soon as possible, and then at the end, when everything is fixed, maybe apply some more deeper corrections to that. And in the middle of that, there's the post-mortem coming from the incident, where we reflect all the timeline, all the actions, the immediate actions taken to solve the issue, and then at the end there's some corrective actions and the responsible for that.
Let's start from the very beginning. Sorry to break it up. Let's start from the beginning. When do you define this in the life cycle of a startup? Right?
I think that you need to have certain scale.
Exactly. You wouldn't do it on pre-seed, right?
No. I wouldn't think that you do it on Series A. Why? First of all, is when you start writing or trying to put those processes, is because you know some of the things that might happen because they have happened already, or you bring them from your previous experiences. So there are things that are quite easy to document on typical failures, on typical things that happen, and it is easy to have a protocol quite well written on what are the steps to follow. Because you write it for your team, you write it for junior guys, that's easy. What it's much more complex, which Victor is reflecting, is something happens and you have the alert of something's going on, but you don't know the cause, which might have been a couple of days ago in Facebook. Everything goes down. Why? So the first thing is you start digging like crazy, trying to understand first what's going on. Second, what was the cause? Because with that, then you can start reviewing or thinking if you already have processes in place, or you need to work them as it goes. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure there was no written process or disaster recovery plan for this. I'm pretty sure they have it for when they lose databases, for when they lose a lot of components, but no one ever thought
Not this one.
you would plug yourself off from the internet connection. So then what happens, as Victor was saying, if you do correctly your work, call it post-mortem, call it as you want, then you write what happened, what were the actions taken in order to come back to life, and you review which ones you already had identified, documented, and processed, and the ones you didn't. And for those, you first evaluate how often might that happen, but second, you document what to do so that next time it happens, instead of having to go through again and again and looking, the first thing you would do is run a plan that you had because something similar happened. So I'm pretty sure that there are new documentation, new processes in place in Facebook, and in a lot of companies that run similar infrastructures on what to do if something like this happens.
What would be like the first things you would check in the case of having your systems down? Typically, what's the first things you check, Victor, and how do you build up from there?
As Jordi said, you don't, as you said too, Alex, you don't do this in a small scale company, in a early stage startup.
Correct.
You are learning from your past errors. It's a process of learning and improving processes, and so when this happens at a bigger scale, a little bigger scale than a early stage startup, you start having a monitorization system in place. So that's the main clue that can you guide through the incident. No, you see in your alerts channel that something is wrong. What is wrong? No, what could be wrong from that? Usually, it's not what you are seeing. It's not the cause. There's an underlying cause that is causing the alert they are seeing. But at least you have enough big layer of alerts that can guide you through the root cause, no? And that's the first step.
I think that helps see where the smoke is coming, and then see if there's fire or not. But at least you see the smoke. No, I would say that the typical thing that first of all we would ask is, has someone did a change in the infrastructure code? That's the first question you always see.
What's the last deploy? No,
what's the last deploy? What's the last infrastructure change? We went through a quite intensive outage a couple of weeks ago, which is not that scale.
Can you give more details about that and how you solved it, or is it confidential?
Yeah, it was no. I don't know if it's confidential or not, but because
nobody listens to this podcast.
No. So we have a feature launched with a major refactor, with new providers, with new technology, which had been working perfect for a couple of weeks.
In my computer, it worked, right?
No. In production. 2 weeks working in production. There will be a post about it because the improvements we've done are important. And all of a sudden it stopped working. First thing you do is you check there's been no deployments for the last 6 hours. There's been no infrastructure change in the last 6 hours. So all of a sudden you gather the people who know from your side and from our partner. Second thing we did is, fortunately, we had a quite easy rollback, which was going back to the previous version, which was not as performant, but it was performant in production. So the first thing we did is switch off, switch on, but then it took us a couple of days. It didn't take us 4 hours. It is also true that since we had that backup, that it was switching it on and the functionality was working, and the most improvement was internal, not external, we could say, okay, it's 2 a.m., let's go to sleep and we'll take it tomorrow. Okay? Yeah. But the first thing you check is, have there been any changes lately that could affect this?
Yeah.
And in some cases you find it, we did a deploy 10 minutes ago or an hour ago, and then you start digging there. In this case, didn't find it, and after an hour we said, okay, let's roll back to the old version. It is a pity, and we'll keep in parallel this one running, and we'll check. Unfortunately for Facebook, they couldn't do that. There is no other internet connection, so it's not like changing this cable to this other one.
I'm going to connect to Google, see what happens, like from Facebook. No, but what was the case in your? Was it like a third-party dependency, or what was it?
So
you went out?
We think, and with our partner, because we haven't found exactly the cause, that there was some issues with a cluster we're using with some certificates that should have been rotated. Unfortunately, this is one of the things where you're not that satisfied because you don't have all the details, or you're not sure to pinpoint this was the problem and this was the solution. It is solved. That's even more scary than when you know the problem and you apply the solution.
That's very interesting, because sometimes you really don't know, like you roll back and it works and you don't know why, but you fixed it, right? But of course you need to go back to the
and we
version
went
that
back,
was not working.
So we went back again to that infrastructure with some changes done, and it is working perfectly. But for our partner on our side, one of the things is, and we are still evaluating and investigating, is we both want to know exactly if anything happened and why. Because if it happens again, then the problem is we will not have them and I that process well written to say, okay, we need to go here, here, and here, and change this and this.
Restart the router. That's usually what it works, right? Maybe
it could have been.
What do you communicate in these cases of emergency, and when is it a good time to, let the world know that we are down, we're fixing it, we'll be out for, what kind of messages do you go for, and when's the right time to communicate?
Does it affect your customers or not?
Let's say yes. Let's say, in the case of Facebook, it was pretty obvious, right? But also in your case, even if you're like B2B, B2C, it affects, right?
It affects, no? I like being transparent, but as transparent as you can be, because sometimes when you don't know what's going on, it's difficult to be transparent, because if normally your customers will expect not only that you tell them that you're out, but how long do you expect it to be up again? And giving answers that are not certain and that do not provide certainty is as bad as not saying something.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, you want to give some sort of hope to the end user, right? But in the case of B2B, it's also very critical, because even though it might not have an affection, or maybe it doesn't show to the end user, you're losing even more money, because that's usually where the money comes from, right? So how do you coordinate with the teams, for instance, in a B2B emergency, like when you don't know whether it's you or them?
It's funny, because when I was hearing Victor, it's similar to us. We have a special channel which is called War Room.
Okay, War Room. Okay.
Same as
you
us.
Got that one too? Same name?
Same name.
So if you see that Slack channel ticking, you should be worried. And then we have internal channels with our sales and customer success teams. And there are a set of messages that are automated. There are others that are manual. And we try to be very explicit there on what's going on, so that they can reach out to our customers. They can notify them what's going on. And of course, be as open as possible with what's going on, timelines. And in fact, now we're reviewing a couple of tools that automate that process better and that provide more insights and post-mortem information easier. It is true that you have to balance the technical with the business information. If you put that technical information on those shared channels with marketing, sales, and success, it provides zero value. That you talk about BGP, DNS.
Correct.
They don't get it, and your customers do not care.
And at the end of the day, if your platform is not working, they cannot sell, so they cannot push the marketing. But thank you for the assist. I was going to bring up, what kind of tools are you guys using in your companies for, proactive error detection, load balancing, and log rotations and whatnot? Kind of like what kind of tools are you using there?
Well, in our side, we mainly use the alerting. No, in our case we use Datadog.
Okay.
Alerting is an observability. No, it's having all the. It's a difficult thing to have all your applications with perfect visibility. No, it's a process that takes a long time, a lot of time to improve, and you are always. It's an iterative process. You are always working on it, always improving the observability of the applications. No, it's not easy to see everything, and especially in complex systems as distributed systems as microservices architectures and things like that. No, it's difficult to see in detail what are the interactions, all the interactions that are happening between all the pieces, no, in the system. So that's where you want to put the focus on. You want to instrument a lot and increase as much as you can the observability of your platform to be able later to alert based on those metrics. No?
We do something quite similar. We also use Datadog, and one of the things that I think we all learn is that observability is key, monitoring is key, but it is very important to know what to look for. No, because there's a tendency in trying to look too many things and too much information.
It's noise.
It's noise. So how you clean and how you refine that information is key, and how we, and I like to say that our systems are alive. What do I mean by alive? That they keep evolving, and the same way our systems evolve, our monitoring, our observability changes. So there are things that you were looking for yesterday that, since the system has changed today, those monitors, those alerts do not provide the right answer today. No, so it is a live infrastructure, live code, live everything, which means that those monitors, those alerts are live and need to be changed constantly. If not, then, as Victor was very well saying, it's noise. You get alerts, you go and see, and everything is up and running. We forgot to delete this alert. This system is no longer there, or this endpoint is no longer there, or so that is quite important. No, it's not only having the tools; it's knowing what to look for.
And what is the kind of team that gets involved in these emergency setups? Right, like from CTO top down, like what kind of team do you need in order to work? Because you also don't want to put too many people working on this, right? There needs to be a balance.
So you need the right people.
Yeah, I know. How do you pick the right people? Is it like, site reliability engineers? Is it like also some developers? Is it a VP of technology? I mean, we know that the CTO is not helping very much because you barely know what's going on.
It's bringing pizza and beers. I think that
emotional support,
yeah.
I think that you need a core team, and then you start pulling people from different places. But of course you would need your system reliability, call it system reliability, SysOps, DevOps, infra,
platform.
Most probably you need your top guys in development. Most of the times what fails is not the infrastructure. It's the code running on top of the infrastructure.
Shots have been fired.
No. Because normally, or at least in a lot of organizations I've seen, there are others that I like how they do it, because this ongoing monitor alerting is more distributed across all the teams. But in a lot of organizations, tend to think that it is the infra team in charge. And most normally, our infrastructures, which are in our cases cloud-based and so, they don't fail.
Yeah.
Amazon barely, and it does. Any once in a while we have a service from Amazon that goes, or Google that goes down,
or GitHub.
But they sure has a better SLA than you.
Yeah, and even a better team than we do. So you start with that core team, and as you get more information by seeing the alerts, by seeing where the fire is, a lot of cases you need to bring on the guys who have been developing that, even if it's infra or if it is software, no? So I would say that you start with a smaller team and you scale it on the emergency as more information you have, and you know who's then the right people to talk to.
Usually, I mean, these kind of outages, they're shorter than the one we saw yesterday in Facebook, right? Usually, I mean, of course, they can go to 48 hours. I don't know. That's sort of the outlier. But usually it's 1 to 2 hours. This one took a little bit longer because people couldn't access remotely to the tools they needed to fix it because there was no way in, right?
Because for complex systems...
Correct.
There are complex solutions. And in this case, when you see the cascade of things that happen because you took a decision on how to build that architecture,
yes,
and you never thought, or maybe they thought, but the process was not properly implemented, you never thought that you would plug yourself off, and what it cost more than just the public services, but all the private infrastructure, all the private services. When you read the post-mortem, we could not access the buildings, we could not access the routers, we could not access, and then
correct.
And it's amazing how you bring up all that, because you would have said, I switch it on and that's it. No, my friend. Then you have all the power issues, then you have all the bandwidth consumption. So it is, since the outage was so big and so complex, bringing it up, it was big and complex. So kudos to them. I mean, the work was amazing. I wouldn't have liked to be in that position.
No. My point being, usually when we've seen, WhatsApp is down, Facebook is down, usually takes an hour to fix it. So, 40 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. This was at the core of the company, right? At the core of the technology, at the core of the internet, if you will. So
think of your car. No?
Exactly.
If there's a scratch, you go to the body shop and it's done quite easy. If it's the engine, it's going to take a while.
Yeah, you're fucked. Yeah, no, that's my point. But the thing is, like, how do you go? I mean, for these longer, what's the longest emergency situation you've been in a company, and have you pulled all-nighters? Because I've been in a couple of those, and I want to hear your experiences. And how do you motivate the team to go? 1 more hour, it's 5 fucking a.m., but we need to solve it. Like, how do you do that? Like, for the full disclosure, we haven't done that MarsBased. I'm speaking about previous companies. We don't even have a war room channel in our Slack. That says a lot about this company. But
you should create one just for the sake of having one.
Just for the sake of having, a tumbleweed every day, like saying, no emergencies.
That's good.
Yeah. Maybe we're gonna do it. No, but like, what's your experiences in this very long or like late at night? How do you push? How do you motivate the people? Besides pizza and beer, that's good motivation.
I think it's ownership, no? It's ownership. At the end, as professionals, you feel an attachment and an ownership to the service you're providing.
Yeah.
So what's the motivation? You have first professional. You want things to go up and running, then you have your customers, and at the end your customers are paying your bills and your bills are paying your salary. So I think that I have never found a situation where the team was not there willing to give 1,000%.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, it's a matter of us as professionals, we want to bring it back, we need to do whatever is needed.
Also, I think there's that engineering or geek itch, that scratches you. Something is not working, and it's a tech challenge to solve it. So you spend more and more hours until you don't go to sleep. You cannot go to sleep if there's something broken.
No, that's a good point. Actually, I was not going to go into that, but you brought up a really good point. Like, we engineers or developers, we're super driven by this thirst of knowledge, right? It's like, I want to know, like, I cannot go to sleep until I fix it. However, and science proves this, it's much more likely that you will fix it the next day if you have a good sleep. Yep. Right?
Yeah.
Like Jordi said, like, it's 2 a.m. Let's go to bed. We'll fix it tomorrow.
And that's
better. And then you wake up at 5 a.m. and it's like, I know, I have it.
That's better to do if you can afford it.
That's the point. We had a plan, the previous plan that we could use, but there's also I think there's also pride on it. You're proud of your work. You want to feel proud of what you've done. You don't want your work to be down.
But tomorrow you'll be exhausted. Like you will not be in the office at 9 a.m.
But don't worry. Take the day off if needed. Yeah. But you have to do.
Because you're a great boss. You're a great boss. I have got terrible bosses in the past.
We have a policy for that.
All right. Yeah. Can you explain a little bit about that, Victor?
Yeah. If you have if you are on call, for example, and you get paged that night because something big happened, you are spending some hours there fixing the issue. And then there's a written policy in the company that you are not required to show up at work at 9 the next day. You can take some hours off if you need.
Do you get paid extra in your companies? Is that also a policy including something like that?
That's a good topic.
That's a good topic. I know, because especially in Spain, overtime is not paid, right?
In my case, the on-calls are paid, yes.
Okay. Jordi?
I'm not paid on overcalls.
Okay. No, because in general, maybe we have some audience outside. We do have a lot of audience in the English feed of the podcast outside of Spain, and
I would say that it should be paid. I mean, you're out of work, but then we enter into how do you define who's on call, those processes and so. But if you're asking me to be on call today, tomorrow, most likely I'm not going out with my wife and my kids for dinner because something might happen. What is the time that I should answer from when I get the call to when I should be taking actions? So all that, you don't start thinking until you get some scale. And normally at that scale, you should have resources to do that. And if you have the resources, then you should value that time, that people's time. Then you should take the normal measures, which are market standards, no? Which is how you compensate that time. It is money, it is time and money. So I think that there are many ways of doing it, but I think you get to a point that you need to assess that, as Victor was saying, write it down. So that everyone knows what they are playing and don't have to ask, I was up until 4 a.m. Should I be at 9 at the office or not? No, the policy says, and the clearer the processes and the policies are, the easier to run the team and the service.
No, actually, that's a very good topic. As I was saying, overtime work is usually not paid. It's very rarely paid in Spain, especially in dev and engineering teams. And that's something that, I remember when I was working in Germany, for instance, at 6 p.m. or 5 p.m., I don't remember right now, whenever it was the finishing time, the boss would come and close the office. It's like, hey guys, we're going for beers. Because it was cheaper for him to pay for beers than paying for the overtime, right? And so instead, and because he was forced to pay for the overtime, right? If we said if I reported at the end of the week, I work 3 extra hours, they paid immediately, no questions asked. In Spain, good fucking luck, right?
I would say that things are changing, and there are companies doing it very bad, and there are a lot of companies doing it very well. Come to my office at 6:30 and check if there's anyone there.
No, I've been to your office at 6:05, and sometimes it's only the founders and you.
But what I think is that as the ecosystem grows and matures, and there's people who have been in larger companies here and there, we try to do things better. So I see more and more companies doing things better. It is another discussion if you're a smaller company in early stage or whatever, then things are different. But if you scale up, your processes should scale up doing the standard in the industry.
Perfect. All right, gentlemen, we need to wrap it up. One last minute, each one of you. We want to end this in a very positive note. What's the funniest story that you've got regarding emergency situations? Have you got something somebody ordered funny pizzas, or we got so drunk, or whatever in one of these situations in the past? Can you share any interesting, funny part?
I remember getting to the office in pajama.
What? Okay. Let's hear this one first. Victor, you got time to think about yours. Please elaborate.
So we were running this video platform, Wacky TV, and I have a beach apartment close by to Barcelona where I didn't have internet.
Yeah.
And I could not connect with my phone and so I grabbed the car. I was at the office in 20 minutes, more or less. But it was 3 a.m. and I didn't even, I went to the office in pajamas. The guy at the door, there was this security man, was amazing. Me parking there, getting off in pajamas. What's going on? Well, I don't have internet at home. I needed to solve this, so I came up. And then we were talking and everyone was at home except me. So I sent a picture, I said, I'm at the office, but how are you? In pajamas.
But you were not sleepwalking. You were fully conscious and awake, right?
Well, I had to take the car and go to the office. So
You would be surprised what people do while sleepwalking. Victor, how about you? Have you got anything like this or maybe anything fun?
Yeah. I don't know. Nothing really funny or I cannot remember anything really fun or that. It's
normally there's no fun.
No, very techy things at the end with nice outcome, but very happy ending. But I don't know how to what to recall. Yeah, I don't know the day, maybe the day that we overflown an integer column in a Postgres table.
That happened to Basecamp not very long ago. Yeah, they
That
ran out
many
of
records.
integers, right?
Yeah, we ran out of integers and we needed to switch to pickings, no? The next field type bigger than the integers.
Yeah.
And that was a super nice executed solution. I think we managed to do that without almost any downtime, just with a degradation of the service, and that was a good experience. But
Okay, I'm gonna finish with one of mine because I think it's interesting to see how I gained the ability to work remote in my previous company, which there was no remote policy. But basically, I was working in one client that whenever it went down, I needed to kind of like get all the code base, recompile it to it locally in my computer, and then apply some kind of workflow. The thing is, my computer was so shit. In that company, we had super cheap computers. I think it was like 2 gigabytes RAM, something like that. But I needed at least 8 to compile that. So obviously the Java process, it went to shit every time, didn't work. And I said to my boss every time, like, look, if I do it here, it's gonna take like 4 hours, 6 hours. If I go home, I've got a laptop with that amount of RAM, and I will do it in 20 minutes. And he was like, no, you need to do it in the office. You cannot leave until you fix this, blah, blah, blah. It happened 3 or 4 times, right? And he wouldn't let me go because he was super obstinate, super corporate guy. The 4th time it happened, I said like, fuck you, I'm going home, I'm gonna fix it. And if I fix it in less than half an hour, I'm never coming back to the office when there's these kind of emergencies, right? I went home, fixed it in 10 minutes, and that's when I reported to my bosses, so like, the superior on top of him, and said like, look, this is what happens every time. You either give me a bigger, a better laptop, or I'm working from home with my own laptop, whatever you prefer. Guess what? They didn't want to pay for another laptop, so I ended up working from home with my laptop, which is so wrong in terms of privacy and compliance and whatnot. But, that's how I started working remotely in my last company. Anyways, thank you very much, gentlemen. Is there any
Thanks a lot.
parting words, any last piece of advice for these situations you want to share with our audience? Or we can leave it here.
Expect the unexpected.
Expect the unexpected, Victor?
that was as I read somewhere in Twitter, that outage in Facebook was the father of all outages. No? We all need to learn from that.
That's a good one. All right, let's leave it here. Thank
Take
you
care.
very much, gentlemen. See you in the next episode. Bye.
Thank you to you.